I've had some amazing women in my life. My grandma Aileen lost her home and family in the Second World War. She single-handedly raised my mother, loved me unconditionally, and taught me to have the courage of my convictions. I grew up in a home in London that didn't always have electricity or gas. I was too ashamed to take the free school lunches I was entitled to. A scholarship to a private school transformed my aspirations. Susan is another amazing woman. I first met her when I was 19 and repainting her home. Susan lives in a 7 by 9 foot cell shared with 4 other women with no toilet or bed on death row at Luzira Prison, Kampala, Uganda. Susan had been sentenced to hang at the age of 21 for killing her husband as he attacked her with a machete. Uganda has some of the highest rates of domestic violence in the world. I realize that women and girls are incredibly vulnerable when they come into conflict with the law in Africa. Research in Sierra Leone revealed instances of police torturing and raping girls as they interrogate them. In South Sudan, I met a woman who was waiting to be executed on her husband's behalf because the police couldn't catch him. The Ugandan parliament has recently passed legislation which mandates imprisonment for women who wear miniskirts and lesbians. Upon entering prison, many women lose their homes and possessions. They also lose their dignity in prisons that don't have clinics or sanitary towels. Children born in prison may become prisoners in their own right once they reach school age if they have no family to take them away. However, Susan showed me that African prisons can be places of positive transformation and that people in prison can be change makers. I established the African Prisons Project in 2006 to bring dignity and hope to men, women and children in prisons in Africa, because I believe that every human life is incredibly precious. Our work is to equip people in prison to transform their communities and nations as health, literacy and legal educators. We're establishing a TED-inspired fellowship program for transformative members of prison communities. After getting the death penalty, Susan completed high school exams in prison. She became a tutor to her fellow inmates. She established a prison choir and wrote songs for it. We recorded a CD of their music in 2007. 3 years ago, we got Susan admitted to the University of London to study for a degree in law by distance learning. This was the first university in the UK to admit women and ethnic minorities. Since then, Susan went to court, spoke on her own behalf, and got her death sentence overturned. Last year, she sat her law exams and performed well, especially in human rights law. This year, she's opening a legal aid clinic in her prison, and when she's released in 2 years' time, she plans to practice as a lawyer. We're inspired by Susan. She is gaining the tools to make her society more just. What greater transformation than death row inmate to lawyer? Imagine, for the cost of keeping one person in prison in New York for a year, we can give diplomas in law to 15 people in African prisons to study with the University of London, the same institution Nelson Mandela studied law with, from prison in South Africa. This year, we hope to take on a whole class of women law students in prisons in Uganda and Kenya. In doing so, we believe we will establish a new generation of lawyers whose motivation comes from their personal experience of conflict with the law. I hope they will inspire vulnerable women and men all over the world that they too may be change makers. That's an idea worth spreading. Thank you.